The next question is from Rut Visha 3, and this says, how would you answer tell me about yourself? So tell me about yourself is a really great question. It could be a segue into a really great interview, or you can totally butcher it. Like, you can totally just mess it up, right? So tell me about yourself is unique. You can't, everybody cannot answer that question the same way. So what you need to focus on is, when they ask you, tell me about yourself, it's not really about talking about your childhood and all the sad experiences that you've been through, and just ranting off about your parents and where you were raised and such. This is a place to summarize the biggest life lessons that you've learned through your career. So tell me about yourself should be a way for you to showcase your morality, your competence, your strengths, your lessons learned, your background, and how that makes you a good candidate for this program. So it's just not about tell me about yourself. It's about, I'm going to tell you about the things in me that make me a good fit to work with you in the future. So of course you could start very briefly with a little touch of your background, but just like I talked about with your personal statement, tell me about yourself is not about just regurgitating material that could be ascertained from your CV, but it's really painting the picture of a story behind that person and what makes you who you are. So what's going to make you a resilient resident? What's going to make you a person that's easy to work with? What are some things in your life that really showcase why you'll be a good fit for this area? How are you going to fit into this community? What are some things that make you likable? What are some things that make you different yet special, right? So those are some ways to consider how to answer that question. The next question is, how do I address weaknesses? This is from aqua_Paris. So addressing weaknesses is a great question, because there's this famous question that, you know, people get asked, which is, tell me about your weaknesses, tell me about your strengths. I always recommend when you're answering this question that you look for things in your life that were once a challenge, but that you have very well overcome them, and you have changed and transformed your life based on those weaknesses. So that's the take-home point. The weakness question is not about just listing out a weakness, but it's about listing out the lesson learned from it and how it's made you a better individual. So what that would look like is, tell me about your weakness. Could be, you know, maybe when I was an undergrad, I had trouble with time management. And it really made it to where maybe that's why I spent 5 years in college as opposed to 4 or whatever. But since starting medical school, I learned how to plan and schedule. I use a self-timer on my activities. I go by a journal, agenda, and it has really transformed my life as to how I approach time management. It's really improved my efficiency through medical school, and I'm really excited about implementing some of those things even in residency. There you go. That's the weakness of someone waking up late, that's a procrastinator and all that. But instead of saying, oh, I used to procrastinate, no, I've just showed you how my life has transformed from being someone that procrastinated and was really bad with time management to the small steps that I've taken over the years, and how that will make me a good fit for your program, because that's really the bottom line. But you don't want to just be saying, oh, I'm going to be a good fit. That's not the point. You want to show and not tell. So, oh, I'm sorry about this. This person, I'm going to leave it anonymous. She says she was recently denied a B2 renewal. She wants to withdraw from this cycle. Any advice? That's really sad, because without a visa, you can't come to the States to interview. I would say leave your applications in, because if you do get an invitation to interview, you can take that invitation to the embassy and see whether they'll reconsider your application. So leave your applications in for now. If you get an invitation to interview, that's, you know, a really good reason to go back to the embassy and say, yes, my situation has changed because I'm being offered the position to interview, and maybe that would help the consular officer reconsider. So aqua_Paris asks, if they ask you what books have you read recently, how do I answer that when all I read is medical textbooks? That's a great question. I think that's a good question to show your humor. If someone ever asks you that question, you can totally make that a humorous event and say, well, doctor, I really used to read a lot of books in undergrad, but I haven't really read anything non-medical. Between having to study for step 1, step 2, and CS and CK, and having to prepare for all of this, the only things I've been reading is how to ace my interview. And I mean, depending on who you're talking to, it may be comical, it may be humorous, or it may turn them off. But I really don't think so. I think if you're honest and genuine, everybody, remember one thing. The people that are interviewing you, really, they have been through this process. They know exactly how nerve-wracking it is. They know exactly how you feel. So don't be ashamed to be vulnerable, but yet firm, okay? You don't want to be vulnerable and start crying or breaking down in the office, right? That's not the point. You want to still maintain your strength and your position of authority, but still being vulnerable. So it's one of those things where you can be very honest. Say, hey, I used to love to read, but within the last 4 years of being in medical school, I can't find myself reading anything besides medical books. And because there's a lot to grasp, and the professors and department chairs and program directors that are interviewing you, they can relate with that. And you can make that humorous. You can add some humor to it, and it could actually win some points for you. How to go... So this is Precious_Annie. She says, how to go about the tell me about yourself question. Oh yeah, we already talked about that. Tell me about yourself is basically a trick question. It's a question that allows you to showcase some parts of your life that you may not otherwise have been able to share, but showcasing your strengths and telling them how you are a good fit. That's the bottom line. And again, anyone that needs help with, if you want to do a practice run, you can reach out to me, imgroadmap.com, and we can do some one-on-one interview training where I ask you questions and you answer, and I help you reformulate your answers based on your personal life experience.